Some frequently asked questions about California's budget process. So first, what are the main parts of California's state budget? They are the budget bill, one or more budget bills junior, trailer bills, and supplemental reports. What is the budget bill? This bill contains the appropriations and budget bill language. Note that only a budget bill or budget bill junior is allowed under the Constitution to contain multiple appropriations. It now requires a simple majority vote for passage, and the budget bill takes effect immediately. There is just one budget bill. What is the budget bill junior? This is the bill that amends the main budget bill by making changes to multiple appropriations. And these days, there are often multiple budget bills junior or BBJs. What is a trailer bill? It is a bill to make statutory changes needed to implement the budget. It is the same as any other bill, but it takes effect immediately with a majority vote, so long as it contains an appropriation related to the budget bill and is listed as a trailer bill in the budget bill itself. What is a supplemental report? This is a separate report that requests specific actions be taken by state agencies and departments that is issued by the legislature. However, it does not have the force or effect of law. What are the three main dates for the state budget? These are actually contained in the state constitution in Article 4. January 10th, it actually says no later than the 10th day of the calendar year, is the constitutional requirement for the governor to propose the budget to the legislature. June 15th is the constitutional requirement for the legislature to pass the budget. And July 1 begins our fiscal year here in California. What is the role of the respective budget committees? The Assembly Committee on Budget and the Senate Committee on Budget and Fiscal Review are charged with adopting our state budget, the Budget Bill Junior, and the respective trailer bills in a multitude of subjects. Once the governor's budget proposal is released by January 10th, then both budget committee staff prepare a summary overview of the governor's budget. How do the budget committees review the budget? In early March, the Assembly and Senate subcommittees began holding a series of hearings and taking public testimony from the Department of Finance on behalf of the governor, the Legislative Analyst Office, the respective state agencies and departments that are affected, and of course, members of the public. Most of the work on the budget actually occurs at this subcommittee level. What is prepared for the subcommittee hearings? Prior to these hearings, the Budget Committee staff members examine the budget proposals and prepare agendas that include an explanation of the governor's budget proposals, as well as the staff's recommendations, whether to accept, modify, hold open, or even reject the budget proposals. Sometimes the governor's budget proposals are held open for further discussions and ultimate later vote. As well, the minority party staff also prepare similar information for their respective members, the Assembly and Senate Republican fiscal consultants. What happens during the month of May? The governor releases the May revise or the May budget revision of the budget by May the 14th per the government code, which is after the April tax receipts are generally known. Thereafter, the budget subcommittees must conclude their deliberations and take final votes to close out the budgets, and that occurs roughly within 2 weeks or so. Where can the governor's budget be found online? The governor's budget is on the Department of Finance website, www.dof.ca.gov, under the e-budget tab. What is the physical size of the state budget bill? It's generally in excess of 1,300 pages in length, and of course contains the details of the governor's proposed budget spending for the upcoming fiscal year. What are the budget line items? Each budget item is assigned a 10-digit code, and it includes the State Department, the purpose, and the funding source. What is the jurisdiction of the budget subcommittees? The legislative budget subcommittees, which are known by numbers in both the Assembly and Senate, have the following subject matter jurisdictions. Education is Senate Budget Subcommittee number 1 and Assembly Budget Subcommittee number 3. Resources, the Environment, Transportation, Senate Budget Committee, Subcommittee number 2, Assembly Subcommittee number 4. Health and Human Services, Senate Subcommittee number 3, and Assembly Subcommittees 1 and 2. That's a recent change. State Government is Senate Budget Sub 4 and Assembly Budget Sub 5 now. Public Safety and the Judiciary, Senate Budget Subcommittee number 5 and Assembly Budget Subcommittee number 6. Let's look at a couple of terms. What is a budget change proposal or a BCP? Again, often referred to as a BCP, a budget change proposal contains proposed expenditures and budget changes to existing levels of services that are used to prepare the governor's budget. What is a deficiency request? This is when an agency or department has an unanticipated increase in its costs, regardless of the reason, by the way, that exceed the funding level that was appropriated for the agency or department in the state budget. In these cases, the agency or department will request a deficiency appropriation in separate legislation. What is budget control language or BCL? It's language contained in the budget bill that provides conditions on the use of a specific appropriation contained in the budget. What are finance letters? These are proposals made by the Director of Finance to the chairs of the budget committees, the full committees, in each house to amend the budget bill and the governor's budget from the form that it was submitted to them by the January 10th deadline in order to reflect a revised plan of expenditure. Can budget trailer bills only be passed in conjunction with the main budget bill? The budget trailer bills can pretty much be enacted anytime after the budget bill has passed, as long as there's a nominal appropriation contained in that trailer bill, and it is tied by language and number to the budget bill itself. And of course, this can be done by a majority vote on each floor of the Assembly and Senate. Do the budget committee chairs introduce the budget bills as a courtesy to the governor? Actually, under Article 4, Section 12C2 of our state constitution, the budget bill shall be introduced immediately in each house by the persons chairing the committees that consider the budget. So regardless of party affiliation of the governor and the chairs of the two budget committees, that is done as a requirement, not as a courtesy. Does the governor's May revise provide the only changes to the January 10th budget proposal by the administration? No, again, finance letters are used, and these are revisions to the budget bill that was proposed by the Department of Finance and the governor in January. Do the federal and state governments use the same fiscal year? Nope. The 12-month period on which the state budget is planned begins July 1 and ends on June 30th of the following year, whereas the federal fiscal year begins October 1st and ends September 30th of the following year. Do budget trailer bills need an urgency clause to take effect immediately? No, the budget bill and other bills providing for appropriations related to the budget bill may be passed by a majority vote to take effect immediately upon being signed by the governor or upon a date specified in the legislation pursuant to Article 4, Section 12E1. What must be included in the governor's January 10 budget proposal? The governor is required to submit to the legislature with an explanatory message a budget for the ensuing fiscal year containing itemized statements for recommended state expenditures and estimated state revenues. Now, although it can be introduced prior to or on January 10th, this initial budget is usually referred to as the January 10 or Jan 10 budget. What bill or bills must be passed by June 15th? The legislature is required just to pass the budget bill by midnight on June 15th of each calendar year. Again, only the budget bill itself must be passed. Must the governor sign the budget bill by June 15th? No, that is not the requirement. The only requirement is for the legislature to pass the budget to the governor by midnight on June 15th. Can the governor consider other appropriations bills prior to the budget bill reaching him? As a general rule, no. Until the budget bill has been enacted, the legislature is prohibited from sending to the governor for consideration any bill appropriating funds for expenditure during the fiscal year for which that budget bill is still to be enacted. Now, is there an exception for appropriations bills to be acted upon prior to the budget bill? Naturally, yes. So-called emergency bills that are recommended by the governor or appropriations for the salaries and expenses of the legislature are exceptions. And in that case, the governor will make a statement that he or she is recommending the bill as an emergency bill that should be considered prior to the enactment of the budget later in the session. Can any bill contain multiple appropriations of funds? No, only the budget bill and the budget bill junior contain multiple items of appropriation. Budget trailer bills and other non-budget appropriations bills cannot contain more than one item of appropriation. What is the vote requirement for bills making appropriations from the general fund? As a general rule, they must be passed by a two-thirds vote, except appropriations for the public schools and appropriations contained in the budget bill and in other bills providing for appropriations related to the budget bill. So, what are these other bills providing for appropriations related to the budget bill? These are only bills identified as related to the budget in the budget bill itself, passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. So, believe it or not, the budget bill enacted each year actually has a section toward the end of the bill that identifies by number all of the budget related bills for that year. Must the budget passed by the legislature be balanced? Yes, the legislature is prohibited from sending the governor, and the governor is prohibited from signing into law a budget bill that is not balanced, at least on paper. Does the public know the amount of revenue anticipated to be received? Yes, in fact, the estimate of revenues anticipated being received in the general fund must be contained in the budget bill that is passed by the legislature and signed by the governor.